Hi, thank you for joining us. I am here with Paul Hansen from the Association of Financial Educators, and tonight we are kicking off our four-part financial planning series with a conversation about budgeting. October is not only Spina Bifida Awareness Month, but it is Financial Planning Awareness Month. And one of the most frequently requested topics for programs from our association is financial planning, from basics in budgeting to benefits advisement. So Paul is going to kick it off for us tonight with budgeting. I'm going to pass the mic to him. And if you have any questions, please use the chat feature. So Paul, to you.
Very good. Thanks very much, Julia, and good evening, everyone. It's hard to believe that it's October. I think, Julia, we were talking about this back in, I don't know, March, April, something, and here we are 6 months later. The time flies. Anyway, good evening. My name is Paul Hansen. I am in the finance business. I do this as a volunteer. This is not a sales presentation or a product pitch of any form. This is all about education, financial information. I have been in the finance industry for about a little over 40 years. I'm a certified financial planner, chartered financial advisor, chartered advisor in philanthropy, certified life underwriter. And for what it's worth, I used to host a TV show in New Jersey called You and Your Money for 12 years on the cable television network in New Jersey. So let's get started. We've got a fun agenda today, and the basics, as Julia talked about, that we're going to be talking a lot about finances this month in October. And a great place to start is budgeting. Budgeting is important not only for during your working career, in the accumulation phase of our lives, if you will, but also as we're planning for retirement and even through retirement. And so getting a handle on income and expenses consistently is very important, and has gotten a lot easier with our cell phones and computers, where there's spreadsheets and resources available to us that were not available, years ago. When I started in the business, it was all pen and paper, and used to carry around a little pad in your pocket and write down, how you're spending money throughout the day. And now it's much easier, captured either on our debit cards and exporting that information, so we can see what our income and expenses are. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that. So today we're going to talk about some of the facts on money, tracking where your money is spent, understanding your expenses, and distinguishing from wants and needs, which is challenging at all stages of our career, in the accumulation phase, as well as in our retirement years, and making a budget work for you, and something that's reasonable with expectations and our lifestyle. Facts. Let's see. Facts about money. Understand that every person in household has a limited amount of money despite income, and learn to prioritize what to buy now, what to buy later, and what to do without. And it's those hard decisions that sometimes get us into challenges with our credit and debt calculation. And certainly in a rising interest rate environment like we're currently seeing, maintaining unsecured debt like credit cards that our interest rate is based on a variable rate, where interest rates have the ability to go up, which means that your interest may increase, which means your ability to pay down that debt is limited. And so we want to make sure that you're not only just paying minimums on credit card debt, but more than minimums, so that you can make progress and get that debt paid off or down to a manageable amount. Why do we need to take a look at budget? Well, it's about managing your money, and it's easier than you think. You need it today, and you need it tomorrow when you retire. It's the gas in our tanks. And so, as people said, anything worth accomplishing is worth measuring. And so keeping an eye on income, all sources of income, and all sources of expenses, and what are fixed expenses, what are variable expenses, we're going to talk a little bit about in a few minutes. People have financial goals. Those goals can be retirement, very common. But also we're seeing when it refers to retirement, when do you want to retire? Sooner rather than later? Given what's gone on in the markets recently, some people have changed their date as to when they're going to retire to push it out a little bit more. We can talk about retirement in a little bit. The goals besides retirement might be buying a home, paying off a home, buying a car, paying off a car, buying a second home, buying real estate, rental income property might be a source of income plan during retirement. And so you're only able to achieve those goals if you have net income of you're bringing in more than you're spending, and so that you can allocate some funds towards these goals, paying off credit cards, buying additional homes, saving for college, wanting to travel, giving money to your children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, and avoiding unnecessary debt if and when possible. You know, a lot of people don't plan for basic emergency fund allocation, and they think that they plan to use their credit cards that are 20 to 30% in interest in the event that they need a new refrigerator or a muffler or something unexpected happens. And that's what you want to have with basic financial planning, is you want to have 3 to 6 months of before tax funds in the bank, in a safe place that you have access to. So let's not be relying on credit cards to pay those emergency funds, but to save and have those funds available. An emergency fund is a different foundation than a savings goal. So that they should not be combined. It's not the same fund that's your vacation goal, or saving for the home, that if something happens, well, I'll just take it out of there. It should be two separate accounts. So where do you start? Let's take a closer look at financial obligations and current spending, if it will stay on the screen, and determine overhead costs on fixed expenses. And again, this is important during accumulation time, during our working careers, if you will, as well as during retirement and planning for retirement. Fixed expenses are basically everyday living expenses. What does it cost you to live? Your housing costs, your mortgage payment, your rent payment, your utility bill, car gas, transportation costs, working expenses, our cell phone bills, if you have cable or some sort of internet. No, we don't have cable cutters, and HOA, homeowners association, if you live in a condo or townhouse configuration. So we want to get a handle on fixed expenses. These are expenses that need to be paid to maintain our everyday living. And some basic outstanding debt payments. It might be a mortgage, part of your housing expense. Taxes, real estate taxes. We have our income taxes that are withheld from our paychecks, but our real estate taxes are an ongoing expenses, also a fixed expense, typically tied into mortgage payments. But if your mortgage has been paid off, you still have to budget for your real estate taxes. Working expenses. If you've got kids at home and you're working out of the house, you may need to pay for daycare, or if they're going to nursery school or private school and there's some additional tuition, you need to budget for that. Insurance, all sorts of kinds of insurance. It's a whole topic unto itself. If it's car insurance or life insurance to pay off a mortgage, or property insurance, homeowners insurance, disability insurance, very important. Younger people are 3 times susceptible to a disability than they are to death. So having a paycheck coverage is important. And liability insurance is also important from our litigious society, that somebody slips and falls on your property, or you injure a person and they end up suing you. So you have some coverage on your car insurance and your homeowners, but you may want to take a look at umbrella insurance, an additional level of coverage. And transportation costs. Those transportation costs could be individual, maintaining your motorcycle, moped, car. Could be public transportation costs. And what does it cost to get you to work? Now, a lot of people will say when they're looking at retirement that if you read in the media often tells you to plan for retirement at 60 to 70% of your pre-retirement income, because the assumption is you don't have work-related expenses. I would suggest that a more conservative route is to assume that your expenses overall, your fixed expenses, will be exactly the same before you retire than when after you retire. I would suggest that what you spend them on will be different. For example, you won't have work-related expenses. You may not have as much transportation expense going to work, but you may convert the transportation expense into a travel expense. You're on the road more often. You're out seeing your kids and your family and doing something else, or going out on vacations more, or renovating the kitchen or something like that. So just jumping ahead a few years, and when you're talking about retirement planning, you should always assume a conservative approach is to assume that you're going to be spending exactly the same amount of money that you were spending before retirement than you were after retirement. What you're going to spend it on is going to be different. And in latter years of retirement, there's some additional increase in medical expenses. So I don't necessarily agree with the plan for 60 to 70% of your pre-retirement income. And then we've got variable expenses. Variable expenses are things that, if you had one more of or one less of, it's not really going to change your life demonstratively. If you had 3 shirts instead of 2 shirts, or another pair of shoes, is it really going to affect you that much? Or food or entertainment, if you're going out to the restaurants, if you didn't go to a restaurant one less time or one more time this week, it's not that big of a deal. Or going to the movies or going to a show or something. These are variable expenses, certainly part of our life, but where there's some flexibility and control that you have in spending money on these things. And this is also where we can tend to get in trouble and with debt, because it may be something that you want to do, but it's not something that you need to do. And some people will say, I don't have the money in the bank right now, but I'll put it on my credit card, I'll pay it off tomorrow. And that can build up over time. Gifts and celebrations, depending upon, you want to be hospitable and gracious and participate. But it depends upon the level to what you want to do that. So again, it's keeping an eye on these expenses, but these tend to be the areas there's some more flexibility in than your daily living expenses. Here we talk a little bit about what's necessary and what's a want. Well, certainly cable TV, since this presentation has been made, cable TV and the internet have become, I don't know, one and the same, or maybe there's no cable TV, everything's on the internet. But the bottom line, I think, is that the internet capability, if you're using YouTube TV or if you're using Comcast TV, but the ability to have access into the World Wide Web and what that affords us, and today is probably a necessity, not a want, but a necessity, either through our phones or portable devices in any way. Manicures, probably the extent, it's not something I can speak of from experience, but the idea here is, do you need to have manicures every week, or it could be once every 10 days. I honestly don't know how that all works. My wife is not a big fan of manicures, so I can't tell you what the schedule is, but the idea is there flexibility here in how much you're spending on some of this. You need a new car. Now you need a new car, but does it need to be a new car, or does it need to be a used car? Currently, obviously, and given the economy and what's going on now, used cars are probably as much or more expensive than new cars are, because you can't even get new cars. But the idea is there a way to control your expenses on the purchase of new transportation, if you will? Do you need the new thing, or will last year's model on sale fulfill the obligation to get you from point A to point B? Vacations. Do you need to take the round world cruise, or can you just settle for a vacation in the Caribbean or something of a lower expense? Still gives you the time away and time to rejuvenate your engines, but maybe not as extravagant. So again, concerned about what's necessary and what's a want. iPod, again, it's an old presentation. I don't think they even make iPods anymore, but certainly if you're referring to portable devices, it certainly has become a necessity. Going out to eat, we talked a little bit about before, going to restaurants, you need to go out all the time and spend as much money as it is. Shows, concert tickets, new pair of shoes, clothing. Is there some ways to make thoughtful decisions as opposed to wanting to do everything at all times? Wants versus needs. Understanding the difference between necessity and, where we go? Come on, computer. Understanding the difference between necessity and the desire can help you manage your spending. It's almost like a cooling off period. Sometimes this may be something that I'd like to have and think about it overnight. And is it really something that I need to have? Not to say that you need to go without all the time, but thoughtful consideration of how you're spending the variable expenses. Controlling your budget means making tough decisions. There'll never be enough money for all needs and wants. And so we all have some constraints and budgetary constraints, and we need to make some difficult decisions. This is a great area. Again, this, as we talked about early on, I remember my father walking around with a little pad in his pocket and a pen, and he would keep track of, it's amazing some of the little expenses that add up over time. And, you think of Starbucks, or my friends call them $5, and $3.50 for a coffee times 7 days a week is $24 times a year. That's $1,200 a year right there. And that's after-tax money. So that $1,200, you might have had to earn $1,500, $1,600 to afford just, one Starbucks a day. Do you need a Starbucks every day? Maybe you need it 5 days when you're working. Here that's shown at 7 days, maybe you need it 5 days. A burger, $4 times 7 days. I don't know, supersize me if you can eat a Sonic burger every day, but that's $30 for the week. And over the course of the year, it's $1,500. A carton of cigarettes, not that many people smoke anymore, but what, $32? I don't even know if that's a reasonable price. I don't smoke, but the idea here, $32 a week times 6 months, 26 weeks, $800. That's it's a lot of, you need all of that. So it's by keeping a handle on even these little things. Oh, how much could that hurt? It can add up over time. It's only $3.50, but $3.50 is $25 a month. That can be going towards debt or be going to something else. So again, just thoughtful consideration about how these little small spending can add up. Alternative to scaling back. You're making some decisions as to I need to do it, but do I need to do it that way? Public transportation, when possible, certainly being in the New York City area where I live, it's easy to get around on subways and buses and so forth, and a lot less expensive. And carpool when possible. Downgrading utility bills. I know some of the utilities, I was just personally approached by my utility company about some utility companies are going to different pricing plans, that if you, it's more expensive during the day and less expensive at night. And so they want you to encourage you to do your electric vehicle charging or your portable device charging on the overnight, as opposed to doing it during the day when electricity is billed higher. And so if you can adapt to one of those different utility bills schemes, you can save yourself some money. And packaging, I think every cable carrier now packages internet, phone, TV. It's less expensive than getting, even one of them at the same time. Again, I can speak for myself. I've got the package. I don't use the phone piece, but because it's less expensive to have all three, that's what we've gone with. Attend free events, around town. Certainly towns are offering a lot of fun things to do that don't cost any money, as opposed to, in my case, going to Madison Square Garden and probably spending, $300, $400, $500 to go to a show. You can watch stuff online for free and go to stuff in town. Grind your own coffee, I think, is a comment geared towards our Starbucks friends and our Dunkin' Donut friends, and McDonald's and 7-Eleven coffee. That is it less expensive to do it on your own, and some people like and getting into that and have a broader selection of the things that they can do and how they want to do it, and then just a change of behavior can save you some funds, or you're redirecting that money that you would otherwise be given to Starbucks to having your own kind of fun cooking event at home. So it's just making some hard decisions and cooking at home as opposed to going out. It seems to be a lost skill that many people have of being able to cook out. We take for granted going out to restaurants because it has gotten so ubiquitous and very easy for people to do. But a lot of grocery stores have, prepared meals or warm up and things that can save some funds on doing some things at home. And again, this is not an all or none, but maybe a nice compromise in doing some things on the less expensive side than doing everything on the more expensive side. Got discount stores, certainly, and all the options that we have available to us on the internet and the web, and the cost savings, and certainly shipping for free, and those things. Again, from the time that this presentation was made a few years ago, shopping at discount stores or on the web is a very valuable way and convenient way to save some funds and be an informed consumer about what you're buying. And coupons, again, also have gotten involved on through the computer and through the phones. Those coupons are delivered to you, and stores now take much more advantage of that. So using that stuff is, again, can add up to some substantial cost savings. Secret to financial success: learn to live within your means, within your income and your budget. Key steps to establishing and managing your budget: identify all sources of income and calculate the monthly take home. There are plenty of online resources to help you do this now that were not previously available. If you're familiar with Excel spreadsheets, there's pre-formatted spreadsheets that you can download either for your laptop or portable device, or for your phone, and can track things. I know many of the banks track all your debit card expenses and can be exported into Excel and then can be identified. And it's much easier to identify sources of income and expenses than ever before. And deciding what's a want and what is a need, and to reevaluate that on an ongoing basis. We talked about there's certainly decisions, but some of these decisions are easier to make, and the substitutes are easier to acquire than they have ever been because of technology. And creating a spending plan that's realistic, that you don't want to do without everything, and you can't afford to buy everything. So those, you're at one end to the other, but what's a reasonable, realistic spending plan based on income and expense? One thing also to take a look at, it's not a tax seminar, but if you're getting large refunds back on your income, on one hand, that's a tax-free loan to the government over the course of the year. And if your spending is so constrained and you're getting this large check back at year end after you file your taxes, there's ways to adjust your withholding that maybe it doesn't have to be as large of a check coming back. It may be a little bit less, and that can give you some additional income coming in during the year that can, help out your budget over the course of the year. Living within your income, that's we talk about, it's kind of the basics of this whole budgeting strategy. Again, not only important today during our working careers, but also during our retirement years. Particularly important when, we've all seen the statistics in retirement that people are living longer, and a lot the current surveys show that the big concern of retirees is running out of their money because they have not saved enough money for as long as their lives may be. And so learning to live within your means today is important, as well as tomorrow when you could be retired for as long as you were working. So an interesting statistic is when Social Security was started, Social Security wasn't going to start paying until age 65, I believe, with during a time when the average life expectancy was 57. So there was a plan that it was never meant to ever pay out, and now it's an important part of people's retirement planning because people are living way longer than was ever expected. Well, that just kind of wraps up a little bit about what we were talking about with budgeting today. We're going to get together again in another I think week, right, Julia? And have another topic on financial information, financial workshop. And I'd like to thank you for extending us the time this evening. So Julia, back to you.
Thank you so much, Paul. There was so much great information in that presentation. I think especially about, for people with spina bifida, the emergency funding, having that backup, and like spending money out. I think it's hard sometimes to access healthy meals or have an apartment or a house that's physically modified so that you can cook on your own. So this also gives me some ideas about, strategies for our programming in the future about those independent, at-home skills and what you can do to learn those so that you can be better with spending money, and how to work with your bank to manipulate the information to help you create a budget, as you mentioned. So really helpful, really applicable to those we're serving. So thank you so much for our time, our time. And part 2 will take place next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we go over financial planning.
That is, I'll tell you, that's a big topic. We're going to cover a lot. We're going to review budgeting. We're going to talk a little bit about insurance. We're going to talk a little bit about investments. We're going to talk about retirement and tax deferred accounts, retirement accounts, as well as college savings accounts. We'll talk a little bit about estate planning and wills and power of attorneys. That is a jam-packed presentation on financial planning. There's a lot of things to cover. Any one of those things is a workshop in itself, and we're going to try to jam them all in within 50 minutes.
Well, thank you so much again. I am very much so looking forward to it and seeing what takeaways I can get from the program as well. And thank you all for being here with us tonight, and hopefully we see you again next week.